studios, here's Jake Asman.
We waste no time with our next guest. He's been very busy covering all the news from NBA free agency. He is the NBA insider at Bally Sports. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson joins us right now on our progressive guest line. Brandon, as always, appreciate the time, my friend. How you been?
Tired. How are you?
I feel you on that, man. So obviously a lot happened in the league yesterday, but I talked about it in my last segment, Brandon. I didn't think there were a ton of major splash signings that really changed the balance of power in the NBA yesterday. Do you agree with that? I mean, what to you, if anything, really moved the NBA needle?
I did like Lonzo Ball joining the Chicago Bulls. I will tell you that when I looked at that move, it would have been so nice to have seen it happen back at the trading deadline, because I think it would have pushed the Bulls a bit, making to the playoffs. But I think you are right. Overall, nothing really yet. I think the pendulum, will begin to swing once DeMar DeRozan decides ultimately where he will land. All pointing to the Spurs using their cap space to make that happen. But the Miami Heat have looked to acquire him and partner him back with Kyle Lowry in Miami. So I think if DeRozan were to find his way in Miami, I think then we could be talking kind of a momentous switch in that regard.
You look at the Heat, obviously getting Kyle Lowry was one of the bigger moves of free agency. How does Lowry fit the Heat? And when you look at the rest of the roster, are the Heat now with Lowry a championship contender?
And not just that, they got an extension with Jimmy Butler for 4 years, which I think is pretty decent, particularly because this is a team just last season who made it to the NBA Finals. But when I look at that team, they needed to add some firepower after succumbing to the eventual champions Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the NBA playoffs. They needed that help at point guard. And I look at this move with Kyle Lowry, kind of the last few years, we've seen this trend with point guards who are, I don't know if left for dead is the right word, or perceived to be washed. You look at Chris Paul this season and coming of age, literally this season, playing for the Phoenix Suns, and you look at Kyle Lowry in that same vein. I mean, one of the best to ever lace them up with the Raptors, finds his way to Miami, and there's something about Pat Riley in Miami that kind of invigorates players. And I look at that in this instance here. I think that the last couple of years has been the rage against the machines with seasoned point guards. And so I think that when you look at Kyle Lowry in Miami, as well as Rajon Rondo in the Clippers situation this season, being traded there or going to the Hawks, it didn't work out there. But you even look at Russell Westbrook, in Los Angeles with the Lakers. I think that this is another example of a point guard that you need to kind of lift your team to new heights. And I think that's what's going to happen in Miami with Kyle Lowry.
Brandon Scoop B. Robinson joining us here on our progressive guest line, talking NBA free agency with the lead NBA insider at Bally Sports. You look at Chris Paul, Brandon, obviously a whole lot, of chatter about what his future would be became very clear early on in the free agency. He was going right back to Phoenix. Any surprise there? Did you actually think Chris Paul would leave the Suns after being part of a team that went to the NBA Finals?
There were discussions about potentially going to the Lakers between he and LeBron James, but it all was about fit and the want, the desire to win a championship with the Lakers, was there as it relates to just taking less money. Again, I've said this countless times that, if you take LeBron James at his word, he and the Banana Boat crew will one day, be teammates and kind of make that happen. Melo still has a chance to do that. He's deciding on the Lakers or the Knicks. I think the Heat should be in that fold also. But when I look at Chris Paul specifically, related to your question, I do think that it puts him in the best position, because there's something about Phoenix. There's something in the water. There's something in the physical therapy. There's something in just the medical care that keeps people fresh. You saw it with Shaq. You saw it with Grant Hill. You saw it with Steve Nash. And Chris Paul's already done the LA thing, playing for the Clippers, playing at Staples Center, and ultimately he's stuck to getting the bag, and he'll be paid handsomely till the age of 40. So now the Suns need to figure out what they're going to do with DeAndre Ayton, and his future, and it's going to be interesting.
You mentioned the Knicks. You mentioned Carmelo Anthony. The Knicks came into yesterday with the most cap space in the league. They spent a lot of it retaining some of their own guys, and they also went out there and paid Evan Fournier a big deal to come to New York. Give me your breakdown of what the Knicks decided to do with their cap space and free agency.
Evan Fournier is a great defender, and the Knicks have had their eye on him all the way up to day one of free agency. They went out and did what they needed to do. Boston was a holdover, and Orlando. I've spoken to coaches in Orlando who rave of Fournier's ability to guard the perimeter players, and the Knicks, to me, got a guy who is a Tibbs type of player defensively. They needed another a defending guard to spell Ntilikina in stretches where he couldn't necessarily guard point guards defensively, and they did that. And so you add him there. You also add you re-signed Derrick Rose, who was definitely a bright spot on that team, getting him before the trading deadline. A guy that's played for Tibbs in Chicago as well as Minnesota. And I like the move specifically because in a world where, people thought that Chris Paul could come or could at least consider it because of his prior CAA ties with the team president, they were able to I think, hit a single or double or triple. You don't always have to hit the home run or the grand slam. You still stay solid, and they invested in their defensive philosophy, which I think is great.
Brandon, my only concern as a Knicks fan with what they did is that they're going to rely on Derrick Rose too much as their point guard. Like, the Knicks, to me, can't be playing Derrick Rose at this stage of his career 30 minutes a night, right? So do you think the Knicks will still do something at the point guard spot? How do you see it playing out going forward there?
Well, I mean, if you look at the Knicks and you look at Damian Lillard, maybe that's what they're banking on. I will tell you that, you look at their summer league play, they added Kevin Knox to their roster, 21 years old, 6'7", height, 6'11" wingspan. And I think that they're going to showcase him in summer league. The Knicks have cap space, but they also have some guys on their roster that they could move and they could entice Portland. So maybe they know something we don't know just yet.
I like the sound of that. All right, so let's talk about Damian Lillard, Brandon. From what you're hearing, do you think he's eventually going to ask out here? I mean, what is the latest with his status with the Trailblazers?
Well, I know that the Blazers have made some moves in day one of the free agency period. I know that there have been talks swirling around that the Knicks would be his preferred destination. But I do think that the Boston Celtics are a team that could be a sleeper in that sweepstakes. If they were to trade him, I've spoken to folks within the Knicks organization. They are monitoring it. And specifically going into free agency, I was told that he's on their short list of players that they're considering. And that short list was including Lonzo Ball, who's now a Bull, Kelly Oubre, who, is figuring out whether it's going or waiting for DeMar DeRozan's situation in San Antonio, as well as a potential sign and trade with the Warriors going somewhere, or the New York Knicks. So you look at that there. Kawhi Leonard is someone they're looking at, but ultimately it seems, though, that even though Kawhi opted out, he may end up going back to the Clippers because there's a comfortability there. We'll see. But as it relates to the Knicks, Damian Lillard is on that list. And, if it comes down to, a potential move there, I think that the Knicks will try their best in communication with the Blazers to make that happen. So, yeah, there's that. But I definitely think that, the Knicks have the cap space. They have people on their roster that they could utilize in a potential trade with Portland. But, again, Damian Lillard has to publicly ask out. And, I know that he's met with the Blazers, and we'll see.
Brandon Scoop B. Robinson has been our guest. He's the NBA insider at Bally Sports. Follow him on Twitter at Scoop B. He'll give you the latest with everything going on with the NBA. Brandon, my friend, thanks as always for your time. I know you've been very busy the last couple of days, so certainly appreciate you carving out a few minutes for us here this morning.
Of course, man. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself. We'll talk soon.
There you go. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, NBA insider at Bally Sports, with us there on our progressive guest line. Good stuff there on some of the moves made by a bunch of teams, including the latest with Dame Lillard and whether or not my New York Knicks could get in the mix for that guy. I've said it before on the show. I said it before I went on vacation. I don't care what it takes to get him. Get him. I know it's going to cost a lot, and there's Knicks fans like, no, it's the Melo trade all over again. If you have a chance to get a guy that good, he's the best player the Knicks would have had since Patrick Ewing. You have to do it. He will bring other stars with him as well. He's that type of player. Get him. I don't care what it takes. If you could get Damian Lillard and you're the Knicks, you have to do it. You're not winning without superstars. He is a bona fide superstar. Him playing at the Garden would be incredible. I'll leave it there. If you could get Lillard, if you're the Knicks, you get him. 800-224-2004 is the number if you want in. Plenty still to do. We wrap up hour 1 of 2 next right here on the Jake Asman Show. Back from vacation here on Sports Map Radio.
Coast to coast. We can't get away from LeBron. The Lakers are out. We can't get away from him. Too bad they don't make moves.